And joining me now is Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Senator Rubio, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate your being here. I want to start off by just saying our thoughts are with you, everyone in Florida, everyone impacted by Hurricane Helene. And I want to start right there. Is Florida getting the resources it needs from the federal government? And Senator, what are your biggest areas of concern right now?
Well, in any one of these storms, the number one thing you want is to have power back up and the roads open. And the state's done a great job of getting the roads cleared and opened. Power obviously is more difficult. It depends on different places. But we were at 1 million people without power. I don't know what the numbers are this morning, but they had dramatically dropped last I checked last night. There are some parts of our state, I think about Cedar Key, for example, beautiful place. People love going there. It's tough to get there right now, but from all reports, obviously, it's unfortunately been pretty much wiped out. So there are some coastal areas, some of which are now facing their third storm in the last 12 months. As far as the resources, look, it's a state obligation. The state steps forward. If the state needs anything to give to local communities, that's where FEMA comes in. And then we're hoping to get a major declaration here today from the White House that will open up individual assistance to more counties so that individual people who have been displaced and have nowhere to live will qualify at the individual level for assistance in the short term while they get their lives back together. But obviously our thoughts are also with people in Georgia and across the southeast who have also been impacted by this storm as it made its way through those states as well.
Well, and again, our thoughts are with everyone as this cleanup and recovery mission continues. Senator, let me turn to the other big news this weekend, of course, out of the Middle East, the revelation that Israel has killed Hezbollah, confirming its leader, Hassan Nasrallah. NBC News confirmed just this morning that Israel used a U.S.-made 2,000-pound bomb in the strike that killed him. You are vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. How do you expect Iran to respond, and how concerned are you that this could ultimately lead to a wider conflict between Israel and Iran, Senator?
Well, I think if Nasrallah was still alive, the threat of a broader conflict is even higher. This is the guy who cheerfully said, death to America, death to Israel. Now, when you're a country and someone runs an organization that exists for the specific and defined purpose of destroying you, you have no choice but to treat that person as an enemy and to confront them likewise. This is the guy that spent years, cheering on suicide bombings that killed innocents, the kidnapping of Israelis. There are 60,000 Israelis right now who, for almost a year now, have had to leave their homes in northern Israel and are living in hotels in Tel Aviv, and their kids are going to school online in conference rooms because the group that Nasrallah headed, which is Hezbollah, was using anti-tank weapons, not guided and long-range missiles, anti-tank weapons to target them and civilian infrastructure, so people had to leave. What country can have 60,000 people permanently displaced? And that's what this issue with Hezbollah is all about. Israel wants a 6 to 10 mile buffer between itself and Hezbollah, so they can't be using these shoulder-fired rockets to target cities and civilian communities, so people can move back to their homes. And Hezbollah refuses to pull back. It continues with those attacks. And so Israel has no choice but to defend itself. And so wiping out not just Nasrallah, but the senior leadership of this evil organization, I think is a service to humanity.
Do you think Iran is going to retaliate?
Well, I think Iran is constantly looking to hurt Israel, and they seem to be willing to fight to the last Hezbollah member or the last Shia militia member. Ultimately, that'll be Iran's decision to make. Their goal is to dominate that region. They seek to drive America out of the region and then destroy Israel. And so anytime the Iranian regime is on defense, it's good for the world, good for America, and good for Israel. It'll be up to the Iranians to decide what they're going to do. But I will tell you that I believe that they will find themselves in a very precarious situation if, in fact, they do escalate this on their part.
Let me ask you about former President Trump's policies as it relates to Iran. Just this week, he signaled he was open to potentially trying to strike a deal with Iran. Of course, he vowed to do that during his first administration when he ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, which did have guardrails to try to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Trump said that didn't go far enough. He wanted a better deal. That's why he ripped it up. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say, Senator.
At a certain point, they're going to call me and they're going to say, let's make a deal. No preconditions. No. They want to meet, I'll meet. Anytime they want. We'll be good to them. We'll work with them. We'll help them in any way we can. But they can't have a nuclear weapon. We must also make a deal that allows Iran to thrive and prosper and take advantage of its enormous untapped potential.
Senator, why didn't he get a deal done? And why should Americans have confidence that he would be able to get a deal in a second administration?
Well, he may not, because that's up to Iran. Look, if the Iranian regime tomorrow said, look, we're going to stop trying to become the regional power, we're going to stop our nuclear weapons, we're going to stop sponsoring terrorism, we're going to stop trying to kill you, which is what they're trying to do with Donald Trump, we're going to stop all of these things, theoretically, yeah, of course you could work something like that out. That's just, I think, unlikely, because that's the very driving mission and purpose of the regime. I think one of the things he says in that statement, which I think points to something very clearly, is the Iranian people are nothing like the regime. I know a few countries in the world whose leaders and its people are more different. The Iranian people are not seeking to be a regional hegemonic power. They're not seeking to sponsor terrorism. In fact, there's a lot of pressure inside of Iran among people, arguing with all the problems they have at home. Why are they spending all this money on Shia militias and terrorists and Hezbollah and helping Hamas and building terrorist networks in the West Bank? So ideally, that's the world we'd love to live in. And if that opportunity presents itself, who wouldn't take it? What we can't have is a world in which Iran has unlimited resources to continue to sponsor terrorism, build towards nuclear capability, and build these long-range rockets and missiles that they now have and have developed just in the last few years that threaten not just Israel and the entire region, but ultimately the United States.
Well, and Senator, just following up on that point a little bit, Iran has been supplying Russia with weapons in its war against Ukraine, including drones,
Correct.
including short-range ballistic missiles. And yet Donald Trump will not say that he wants Ukraine to win the war. Are you concerned about the message that that sends to Vladimir Putin and the supreme leader?
No, because I think, unfortunately, I'm not on Russia's side, but unfortunately the reality of it is that the way the war in Ukraine is going to end is with a negotiated settlement. And I want, and we want, and I believe Donald Trump wants, for Ukraine to have more leverage in that negotiation. But in order to be in a position to be a broker who can bring about that agreement, I think he's going to preserve what he says. He approaches these things as someone not in politics or diplomacy, but as someone with a background in business. It's not going to be easy to do, but at least there's a defined goal. The Biden administration has not defined what victory means in Ukraine. They have not defined this is what victory looks like. And if you press them, they will tell you what I have just said to you, which is the way this conflict ultimately ends is with a negotiation. And so I don't know why we can't just say that. And we hope that when that time comes, there is more leverage on the Ukrainian side than on the Russian side. That really is the goal here in my mind. And I think that's what Donald Trump is trying to say, but he's going to say it like a businessman. But Biden won't even tell us what victory is. Well,
Senator, you say negotiated settlement. Here's what Senator J.D. Vance said. He said effectively that he would like a peaceful settlement that, quote, looks something like the current line of demarcation between Russia and Ukraine that becomes like a demilitarized zone. President Zelensky says that plan is too radical, that it's basically appeasement. It means Russia would get to keep the land that it's illegally claimed. Do you agree that that sounds radical?
Well, I think what the deal looks like will be up to the parties when they negotiate it. Obviously, Zelensky is not going to come out there and say, from a negotiating standpoint, he's not going to go out there and predetermine what it looks like. So I understand why he wouldn't want to go out there and define what it looks like at the front end. But I think we as Americans, the reality of it is we are investing billions of dollars into this effort. And it's important that as we invest this money into this effort, that we tell the American taxpayer this is what the money's going towards.
Senator,
ultimately, it's not endless war, right?
We're almost out of time, so very quickly, just to be clear, would you be comfortable accepting the current lines of demarcation as Senator Vance seems to be?
I would be comfortable with a deal that ends these hostilities and that I think is favorable to Ukraine, meaning that they have their own sovereignty, that they don't become a satellite state or a puppet state that is constantly held hostage by the Russians.
Is that a no, Senator? Is that a no?
Is that a what?
Is that a no?
Well, I'm not going to prejudge any agreement. I will tell you the Ukrainians don't want to live in a country where the Russians dominate their territorial, for example, Crimea. What's the future of Crimea? The Russians claim it. Obviously, they stole it back in 2014 in the first invasion. You'll have to ask the Obama people why that happened under their watch. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what the most important thing here is that these hostilities end and that Ukraine can go back to rebuilding its economy and people can move back. Millions of people have had to leave that country. It's been devastating to them. But that negotiation is going to be up to them. I just want them to have more leverage than Putin.
All right. Well, we know this will be one of the big topics on the debate stage on Tuesday night. Senator Marco Rubio, thank you very much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.